Earth's moon is kind of special. It's huge compared to other moons in our solar system, and its gravitational pull has helped shape our planet and all life on it. But what if Earth had more than one moon? How would that affect us? And what do we know about planets with multiple moons? In this video, we're going to explore what would happen if Earth had not just one, but two moons. A long time ago, the idea of having two moons was a common theme in mythology. But now, scientists are actually considering whether this may have happened in Earth's past. There are two possible ways that Earth could have ended up with a second moon. The first way is capture, where an object like a planet or asteroid gets too close to Earth's gravitational pull and gets captured into orbit around our planet. The second way is co-formation, meaning that the second moon formed at the same time and place as the current moon. This would make the two moons sister moons, kind of like how the large and small moons of the Pluto system formed from the same disk of debris. How likely is it that Earth had a second moon at some point? It depends on which theory you ask. Some astronomers think capture is more likely because there are lots of asteroids whizzing around the inner solar system, and many of them pass Earth's orbital path. It's also possible that early Earth had a giant moon-like object smash into it, and the two objects formed our current moon together. But wait, what does the scientific evidence say? Well, some scientists think there's evidence that Earth did have a second moon. In 2013, a group of researchers looked at lunar samples brought back from the Apollo missions and analyzed the oxygen isotopes. Their results suggested that the moon formed when a large object smashed into Earth. The fact that the oxygen isotope ratios in the moon and Earth's mantle are so similar also suggests that they shared a common origin. All of this evidence supports the giant impact hypothesis for the formation of the moon. Other scientists aren't convinced, though, and still think the capture hypothesis is more likely. They think the second moon would have been an asteroid that was originally a few miles away from Earth, but got pulled into our planet's gravitational sphere and became the second moon. It may have been only about half the size of the moon we have now, but even so, its gravity would have affected the tides along with the bigger moon, and that could mean we would have had extra large tides. But there are other possibilities, too. Maybe the second moon would have orbited Earth at such a different angle that it wouldn't have had much of an effect on our planet at all. So, fortunately, there's no surefire way to know which scenario is true, but we can use computer simulations to understand what would happen if Earth had two moons. Either way. First off, let's look at how two moons would affect Earth's tides. Right now, the moon's gravity affects the ocean's tides twice per year. Every 6 years or so, the moon and Earth's gravity combine to cause extra high tides, called spring tides. Most of the time, though, the sun, Earth, and moon form a 90-degree angle, and their gravities partially cancel each other out, which results in lower high tides, called neap tides. If Earth had two moons, each of them would tug on our oceans separately, so sometimes the two tugs would add up and we would have megatides. But other times, the two moons would tug on opposite sides of Earth, canceling each other out and leading to really low tides. If the second moon were orbiting Earth closer than the first, these tidal effects might be more pronounced. And with two moons, we would see extra high tides 4 times a year instead of just twice. And if the moons were even closer together, we might see 6 high tides every year. These extra large and extra frequent tides would have a huge impact on marine life. For example, most shorebirds need to regularly submerge themselves in water to get their food. So if the tides suddenly changed, these birds and other animals would have to adapt quickly or face extinction. But that's not all. Two moons in the sky would also have major effects on us humans. One of the most obvious changes would be more moonlight. We've already seen what a full moon looks like and how bright it can make the night sky. So imagine having twice as much moonlight illuminating the darkness. Some studies suggest that moonlight helps plants grow. So maybe we'd see some extra lush plant growth during a full moon. if we had two moons. We'd see more light every night, even when it wasn't a full moon phase. Okay. And if one of the moons were a different size or brightness, it could throw off our perception of time and mess with our circadian rhythms. We already know that living near Earth's poles would be very different with two moons. That's because the poles experience polar night for part of the year, where they don't see any sunlight at all. So people living at these latitudes could use the second moon as a light source, while the first moon would be setting and rising during the winter. People living in the northern hemisphere would see more moonlight on average than those in the southern hemisphere. And if the two moons orbited Earth at different heights, some regions would receive more moonlight than others. Of course, having more light at night means it would be harder to see stars. And if the two moons were bright enough, they could completely block our view of the Milky Way. On the plus side, if the moons were big enough, they might reflect hydrogen from Earth's exosphere, which is a layer of gas surrounding our planet. This hydrogen is a major greenhouse gas, and the moons could help clear it out of the atmosphere, resulting in a cooler Earth. We already know that Earth's moon reflects a lot of heat from Earth's surface back into space, so adding another moon could lead to more heat being reflected in a cooler planet. If Earth had two moons, they might interact gravitationally with each other, which could push one or both of them out of their orbit around Earth. And if this happened, we could lose one or both of our moons. Having two moons could also lead to more meteor showers. Not because the second moon would have its own gravitational pull, and it would interact with the meteor streams found throughout the inner solar system. Its gravity might even be strong enough to split apart some meteor showers, making them more intense. If Earth had two moons, we would see double moonbows, double shadows, and double reflections in the ocean. And when the two moons lined up just right, we would see a spectacular fourfold rainbow. We've already seen what supermoons look like when the moon lines up perfectly with Earth's horizon. So imagine seeing that twice as often with two moons. And of course, we would see eclipses more frequently too. With two moons, we would see double total solar eclipses and double total lunar eclipses. And if the moons were different sizes, we would have partial solar eclipses every time the smaller moon passed between the larger one and Earth. If the two moons had different colors, sunsets and sunrises would take on a whole new look. Just imagine pinks, purples, and blues streaking across the sky. And if the moons were different colors, we could see new colors during the day, too. All of this might sound pretty neat, but there would definitely be downsides. Meteor showers are fun to watch until you're the one getting hit by a rock from space. Having two moons might lead to more frequent and more intense meteor showers, so we'd probably have to deal with more space rocks hitting Earth. Not only that, but two moons would mess with satellite signals. There's already enough junk in space as it is, and if we had two moons, we would need twice as many satellites to cover the sky, which would further clutter up our orbit. It might seem like fun to have two moons to play with, but they would definitely change our world in ways we don't want. Other planets in the solar system seem to manage just fine with their multiple moons. But we're not sure if that's because the planets are far enough away from Earth and the effects are weak, or if it's just something they have to deal with. Right now, the only planet in the solar system with more than one moon is Mars, which has two moons named Phobos and Deimos. Scientists think these moons are small asteroids that got captured by Mars's gravitational pull. If we want to better understand what it would be like to have two moons, we need to study Mars's moons more closely. NASA is planning a mission called the Mars Moons Exploration Spacecraft to study the red planet S moons in more detail. Set to launch in 2024, the MMX will reach Mars in 2028 and spend a year observing the moons and Martian surface. It will collect samples from Phobos and return them to Earth. In 2033, this will help scientists learn more about how moons form and evolve, which can also tell us whether Earth had a second moon long ago. So far, NASA hasn't found any solid evidence of a second moon, but that doesn't mean that one never existed. Then future discoveries may show us that Earth was once graced by two moons, each leaving their own mark on our planet and our lives. Now you need to watch. Why is the moon the only celestial body that we can see from Earth? Well, check out this video instead.